We are lucky to be joined today by George Bai, who is the founder and CEO of Bai Aerospace. Bai Aerospace they're applying innovative solar electric configuration, structural, propulsion, and mechanical systems all in concert, along with a number of aerodynamic advances to design, build, and market aerospace products that will offer significant increases in performance to aerospace markets. One such project includes a solar electric UAV, so unmanned aerial vehicle, designed to provide a significant enhancement in range and loiter time relative to other UAV designs. So that is a fast-growing business that is truly, I think, innovating in the aerospace perspective, both from a business model perspective, but also from a technology. Talking about the costs, and hopefully we'll hear a little bit about how costs come down when we begin to employ these really innovative UAV and just generally new designs in what's been a fairly staid industry for many decades. So the future is bright in aerospace, and George and his company are leading the way. So round of applause for George Bai.
The core of what we're doing is around electric propulsion. And electric propulsion is applied to aerospace. So the context that we're in, the environment that we're in, has a kind of a legacy of propulsion systems that are fairly conventional. For a propeller-driven airplane, it's a piston engine. For a jet, it's a turbofan or turbojet. And of course, UAVs are relatively new, but use traditional propulsion systems. We are about as disruptive as you can possibly imagine with electric driving a UAV or driving an electric trainer. By the way, trainers, getting a little feedback here. Trainers are, on average in the US, they're about 50 years old. So we're training today's pilots on legacy Cessna and Piper aircraft that are on average 50 years old. And of course the cost of maintaining that and putting fuel in those aircraft is immense. It's about $5.50 per gallon for aviation gasoline, about twice what we pay for our automobiles. So unlike a Tesla perhaps replacing a Cadillac, we're building an electric training aircraft, the Sunflyer, to replace legacy aircraft, a Cessna or a Piper. And rather than perhaps being a little bit more expensive as a car would be, actually it turns out we're about 1/6 the cost with an electric airplane as compared to a traditional airplane. So about as disruptive as you can possibly imagine. Every aspect of aviation is kind of set off tilt when Bai Aerospace and the Sunflyer comes to market. You can't even have in the same marketplace, the same market space, an electric aircraft as opposed to a legacy one. So by definition, I suppose you could say it most certainly is disruptive. And of course, the leading technologies and integrating those technologies are what enables, just now, for the first time, this new technology. So the transition is underway, and again, kind of innovation with a purpose, disrupting an existing market.
Excellent. What kind of unique challenges did that throw off? And then we can also swing around and talk about some of the successes on the other side of the coin.
Okay, I'll start with the challenges.
Okay.
So I'm speaking to a group like this just a few years ago. And I'm talking about electric, and I'm talking about trainers, the age of the fleet, this incredible demand we have for new pilots. I don't know if you've seen some of the latest news. You know, some of the regional airlines are declaring bankruptcy. Some of the national airlines are starting to cut back on the service they have to various cities here in the U.S. and around the world. And the reason cited is pilots. They don't have access to pilots. So we have this tremendous need for new pilots. just a few years ago denied. No one, oh no, all we need to do is raise pilot pay a little bit and we'll solve this problem. The basis, the fundamental basis of your presumed business plan is to create new trainers. Well, we really don't need them. There's really not a pilot shortage. Now, of course, rather than being an argument, we have not just evidence, but forecasts of a catastrophic need for new pilots. But so here we're having this discussion, we're having this presentation debate, and they're saying, well, George, how big are your batteries? Aren't they heavy? And of course, somebody raised their hand and they said, George, how long's your extension cord? Well, we don't need an extension cord. And of course, in forecasting the technology trends, I think we've all seen with our devices, smaller and more powerful batteries, with the EV, ground transportation, advanced batteries, longer range, charging stations and things now that are beginning to catch up. And what we've tried to do is, of course, as a disruptor, we're also looking at capturing technology, certifying it, bringing it to market to solve a problem. And innovation and being a disruptor ultimately is we're here to solve a problem, meet a market need. And of course, the challenge in my industry, particularly aerospace, we've got deep, deep legacy roots. And it's hard for us to think of transitions as significant as this. So I think our persistence, our tenacity with this innovation and bringing to market step by step, kind of overcoming these objections with the new technology is ultimately going to result in our success.
Great. Okay.
I love this question. Remember, we are talking about aerospace. So, being agile in aerospace means you're adopting something new, in a 7 to 10 year time frame, right?
Okay.
A new airplane takes 3 years to develop, another 3 years to certify, and that's fast.
Yeah.
You look at a 787 or a Cessna, the time to market, if you're looking at a new approach, a new technology, a new propulsion system, aerodynamic structure, etc., we're talking long lead times. And of course, we all want that because we're going to be a passenger on that, whatever that might be. Or it's going to be flying overhead, providing a service or data. So one of the interesting and unique aspects of innovation in aerospace is absolute tenacity to a vision, bringing about some type of change. And then the integration of new ideas or concepts within that in smaller subsets is what you try to create space for. White space allows for new battery technology to be added to the electric aircraft. So we have the right size, weight, and configuration to adapt to new cell technology as it comes. And then it's integrated on a step-by-step basis, but the long lead times that you have in aerospace require incredible tenacity and vision.
Seems like a lot of these disruptive companies that have been so successful, they get a framework, generally speaking, right, and then they allow lots of flexibility within that framework to kind of play to the transpirations.
Just to that very point, with the electric airplane, there was no regulation for an electric airplane. It had to be created, and just now was passed so that we could do that. So just to your point.
When you think of other innovative or disruptive companies that have had an influence on you and what you're trying to accomplish, who jumps to mind? What are some of those other benchmark folks that you take inspiration from? Go for it.
Yeah, so 10 years ago we started by Aerospace, almost 11 now. And one of the opportunities I had was to tour the Elon Musk Tesla facility. And it was hilarious. Of course, it's in the San Francisco Bay Area. So the engineers there, as you might imagine, dress a little bit differently, kind of Boulder-like. perhaps, kind of shorts, and, the motor was the size of a watermelon. There were thousands of these little batteries with wires like a bowl of spaghetti. And yet, the vision there was to create a new paradigm of electric vehicles. And for just a few moments, I got, again, kind of a red carpet tour. I was very fortunate. But they gave me a ride in this prototype roadster. And down the back streets of Palo Alto, kind of between the warehouse district there. I have never felt acceleration. And I'm an Air Force guy, afterburners and all the rest of it. That was a rocket. And an inspirational moment for me, of course, was if this can be applied here, how would that look like for aerospace? So, credit Tesla.
Right. Go-to advice you give other folks that come and tour your facility or want to grab 5 minutes or coffee with you? What's your coffee talk? 2 minutes. Two things. Okay.
Two things. One of them, I think we would all agree pretty easily. The first, as I just mentioned, particularly in aerospace, is tenacity. A fire in your belly that means you see it, and there's just this vision for creating what the future might be. And secondly, to kind of go along with that, is failure. And perhaps oddly, what has been your big failure and how did you work through failure? And I think part of tenacity is the ability and maturity to have experienced failure in your life, and what I call fail forward. When you fail forward into a solution. You fail forward with your team, with your resources, with your partners. Expect failure, but have a process and the maturity to deal with it. And at least in my view, a successful entrepreneur often is one who has experienced failure maybe many times. Electric aviation allows access. When we're looking at 1/6 the cost for experiencing transportation or training, it enables access. You have to have skills to be a pilot. You have to have, there's various technology, learning and things, but one of the things that prevents many of us from becoming pilots is a $200,000 training cost. That's just hard to fathom. It's about roughly equivalent to becoming a doctor or, no offense, an attorney. That barrier to entry limits access and may have a significant impact on all of us in terms of being able to fly from A to B on an airliner. But more than that, I think the dialogue with Uber Elevate, some of us have been beginning to see what electric aviation enables, both in conventional transportation as well as what we would call eVTOL or hybrid. One of our partners in developing the future, we're an engineer for another company. Dave, raise your hand. We're doing a hybrid electric VTOL aircraft, and one of the things we're doing is supporting the development of a vertical takeoff hybrid electric airplane. So we see coming in the future greater access, significantly reduced cost, the benefits of almost silent airplanes, and no CO2, no pollution. So we're looking very much forward to that.
Excellent. On behalf of the Denver